So thank you, Ayman, for agreeing to speak to me today about your experiences.
Yeah, thank you, no problem.
So look, we'll get straight into it. You're from Syria, obviously. Can you tell me a little bit about exactly where you grew up in Syria?
Actually, I born in a city called Aleppo in 1990s, and it's in the north in my country. I grew up there until I became 21. That's the point where I left the country. I studied in normal school because private school was for 3 years, so it's general school. I went to it. Then secondary school, also normal. I was, kind of normal kid who's skipping from school, running away, you know. And then I went to economics college.
Okay.
I went to the University of Aleppo. I studied economics. My specialist was in banking. I did 3 years where the revolution starts, and I left that time college. I decided I will be in revolution fully.
Okay.
So no more studies at that since then until I came here.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about your experiences during the revolution a little bit later. Yeah. And I mean, just so people know at home how I know you, that your parents are actually my next door neighbours.
Yeah.
And that's how we know each other. And what did your parents do in Syria?
My father actually, he owns a shop, a supermarket.
Right.
And he was doing that for the previous, since 1988.
Right.
You can say that. He started a shop. And then he moved it to another area, and then since then I grew up in that area called Salah ad-Din, which is a part of the city Aleppo.
Mm-hmm.
He just doing that. He grows up little bit by little bit. Then he moved to making business in constructions a little bit, just on the side of that shop, And I was working with him most of the time.
Okay.
But I wasn't that camp kid with his father, so most of the summers I working away, on my own. Yeah, so that was it, and we moved to the suburb of the city. We lived there since I was 14, but I stayed in the same area, Salah ad-Din, where my father's shop is, because I grew up there, so all my friends, all my relatives.
And what was life like growing up there at the time?
I think it's in general it was fine, because my father was my family in general was in the middle level of wealth.
Okay.
We wasn't too rich, we wasn't too poor. Where you can say at that time around 30%, I think, under the poverty line in Syria.
Okay.
While we are okay, so it was normal, kind of normal. I was a kid, I didn't know, because politics was everything's covered, so I didn't know anything about that. All my interest was playing, doing my things, little bit work, spend some money here and there. That's it.
And that's it.
Yeah, that was my very simple, nothing to do much, because actually you can't say that we don't have dreams because we don't have any potential things that we can't think about. So everything is prohibited. You can't think about being even an inventor. You can't invent anything in Syria. When I was young, it was around 9 to 10 years. I remember there was a guy we know that he made an engine, a car engine.
Right.
He made it himself. He made a brand new car engine, and it was kind of special thing that he invented. A few months later, nobody knows where that guy is. He just disappeared. Wow. Because he's not allowed to do that. So yeah, that's how it was like.
Innovation wasn't encouraged.
No, at all.
And what were your interests?
For me, my interest since I was young was airplanes, flying, and all this. I was heading to go into the aerospace engineering college, but because in Syria also the system doesn't allow you to go wherever you want. It just whatever you get in the leaving cert. That's the only way to go into school, into college. And my points at that time didn't allow me to go into engineering, because engineering was around 80% or 85, between 80 and 85% points from the leaving cert. It was too far from me. I got around 70s.
Right.
So my only choice was economics, which I didn't like.
Okay.
So I studied in it. I didn't study actually, but I just attended there. I went to the exams, passed few of them, failed few of them, just spent 3 years in it, and then look, I don't like that. revolution starts. That's it for me.
That changed everything.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about school days, and you talked about the equivalent of the Leaving Cert. Could you tell us a little bit about the Syrian education system at the time, and how different is it from the Irish one, perhaps?
Actually, it's similar in the as a school system. Like you still have primary school, secondary school, then leaving cert, and then college. But the only difference is that our system is very much harder. Like now, I'm studying here aerospace engineering. In the third year, I studied things that I was studying in leaving cert in Syria.
Right.
So we had 3 books of maths that each one around 400 pages, and you have to know each single test in it. So it was a bit much harder than studying here, especially for school things. And it wasn't, that kind as here as I see now my kids are in schools, how kind are the teachers, how, how easily they take the kids. While like I know now my relatives, he remembers the first day for him in school, he was like just, you can't call it your first class. He went into the school and he hear the noise from the second door, which is the second class. Somebody, he's getting beaten by the teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, so he said like it's terrifying. It's not really simple at that days. It was the 90s, so there is no laws to protect students from teachers. There is nothing much, So it was, as a system overall, as I said, it's as a study it's harder, but as a system it's pretty the same.
Okay.
But we don't have, for college things, then we have different things, because the only option to go into college is the leaving cert. While here you have many other options. Like me, for instance, now I went into college as a mature student. They never asked me about leaving cert.
Okay.
They don't care about it,
And you've alluded to the revolution a few times, but before we get to that, can I just ask you a little bit about what the political system was in Syria, kind of before all of that?
Like for me personally, as I remember, when I was before, my age of 20, I was like 16, 17. All I know is we have that leader, which is Hafez al-Assad first, and then his son came to the power. That's all I know about politics. We have that leader. He never changed. He's everything, and he's the best. No one can be instead of him. So we don't have any choice of, thinking even about replacing him or, having another leader. Our leader is the only one, and that's it. No one cares about any other, let's say, any other employee in the government. We don't care about minister of anything, injustice. He doesn't do anything. Everything comes back to the president, which is Hafez al-Assad, or his son later.
Okay.
It was kind of a family thing. They take a power as a family, and all his relatives, they controlling the main key power centers in Syria, like the intelligence centers and police centers. Every every center that has power, have money, it's one of his relatives.
And would the media be able to criticize the government?
No, like because we have only one channel or 2 channels, and they owned by the government. So they're owned by the government, so that means they're owned by the president. They can't say anything that shows that the government.
That's just my cat behind you there. If anyone's wondering what's going on there.
He just want to go out, So like it just they can't say anything because they are controlled. Every word comes on the media. It's went first to the intelligence center. We call them, like, it's centers, not one. We have many intelligence centers that are separately managed by their leader.
Okay. And were there elections in Syria?
Like there is, but it just to show that we have ones. But unfortunately, we know before any election, either for the president, if the president, we don't have candidates. It's only one. It's only him.
Okay.
There's no candidates. You just go say yes or no, and of course you can't say no because they know who said no. Okay.
Is it a secret ballot or?
It's kind of yes, but it's like they let you go into the secret place, and you close the curtain. But when you go out, when you hand in, you don't just put your vote in the box. They take it from, so they take it, check it, they put it in.
Right.
You can't just say no. You know, you just can't. Like I remember my grandfather. One day, that story that my mother told me before even I born. It was in middle of the 80s. He was like, there was photo of the president on the side of the table for in his house, and he was going to sneeze, so he catch anything beside him, any paper, and he sneezed in it. He roll it, he throw it from the window. Underneath the window, there was a car for the intelligence. They catch that paper. They know it. That was the president. They went up to the house. They took him for around 4 years in jail, just because he sneezed on the photo of the president.
And that was your grandfather?
My grandfather. Yes.
So the consequences for criticizing the president were very severe.
It's kind of like something that could lead to death. There's like, I know when I was young, there was there was another revolution happens in the late 70s, beginning of 80s in Syria, also against this president, his father actually. So there was, I know when I was young, there was prisoners since the 80s still in jails that nobody knows where they are till now. Some of them, they not even know they're alive yet, So many of them, there's some of them released after around 20 years. When the son came, he was trying to show that he is kind and he's the educated president, he's the doctor, so he made few decisions to release some of those people. But it's when you hear stories from those people who comes out, it just shock you, like, is that happening while we are living our natural life? There's nothing happening around us, while there was people, they're living in a situation that's terrifying.
And I think a lot of people in Ireland and in other countries, I suppose, don't realise what the situation was like before the revolution.
And before the revolution, as I said, like as a people, like whenever you live peacefully on your own, you don't go near any political things, you don't go near anything that related to the government or the president especially, you're fine. Okay, we are, you can say we are the most corrupted country in the world at that time. Like anything you need to do, especially in my city Aleppo, it was called the capital of economy of Syria. So everything there running by money. So if you want to do anything you want, everything could happen by money. Anything you imagine. Like for instance, my father was before he bought a land, and he wanted to build his own house. They never allow him, not even if, like, it's not the case that you apply for application, you pay fees or something like that. No, you just go to the head of the council, as they call it here. So you go to the head of the council, you say, look, you take him present, which is worth that much money, and you say, look, now that's a gift because I want plan to build my own house. So that's kind of something that, so he can just don't do anything with you. Because in any case, I remember when my father was, even after that, my father was building the house. I remember one day they came to us and they were planning to destroy the house. Even the house itself, it was permission to be built. And it's in residential area where everything is planned, everything is normal. But to just, you have to pay money to let them leave and don't destroy whatever you build, So that's the way we live.